Hello. Can somebody tell me if I can start my welcome?
Yes, go ahead, Karina. We're live already.
Perfect, thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dykes Gone Digital, the 16th annual Ottawa Dyke March 2020, and our first ever virtual Dyke March. So this year's theme is LGBTQ plus immigrant and refugee rights. I hope you're all excited for tonight. J'espère que vous êtes excités. We're excited for another awesome event dedicated to people like us, Dykes. So the Ottawa Dyke March first took place on July 10th, 2004, in solidarity with other Dyke Marches around the world. Even though the march has grown and evolved since its inception, it still maintains the same values that inspired Ottawa Dykes to take to the street in the first place. Namely, our opposition to commercialization of queer culture and the discrimination that affects Dykes in our society. We are dedicated to ending all forms of oppression. La Marche Dyke d'Ottawa est organisée par un comité de bénévoles de la communauté. Nous nous efforçons de fonctionner dans un cadre féministe pour créer des espaces où les expériences et les identités de tous les gens LGBTQ+, et des personnes qui s'identifient comme Dyke peuvent non seulement exister, mais aussi prospérer. Avant de continuer, nous voulons donner reconnaissance au territoire où nous sommes rassemblés. Before going further, it is important to acknowledge the first people of this land and the complicated ways that colonialism shapes the lives of Indigenous people and the responsibility we have in working in solidarity to eradicate colonialism and currently imperialism. So the Ottawa Dyke March recognizes and acknowledges that the land on which we live, work, and resist on belong to Algonquin Nation. The Ottawa Dyke March commits to fully supporting Algonquin struggles and Algonquin assertions of self-determination and nationhood. We are not innocent in the ongoing colonization of these lands, and we resolve to challenge the presence of colonialism in our words, actions, and communities. We extend our ongoing solidarity to the Algonquin Nation with our words, actions, time, skills, and resources. I would first like to welcome Théo Paradis, who will share with us further reflections on what it means to live and organize as Dykes on unceded and unsurrendered territory. So welcome, Théo.
Ani bojo tansi kwekwe sego ulapkud. Mishka gozi gizi sometimes kwe agokwe na neshka bewas makwadodam. So my name is Teo, but I'm also known as Red Sky, and my people are from along the Ottawa River and the St. Lawrence River, and I am very happy to be able to live in unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin territory and to work and play and live my life with my family, and how important that is. For me, it's a lot of being who I am. It's a lot of singing and drumming and sharing those songs with different people in different walks of life. I've been very privileged to be able to go and share those songs with those among many nations from around the world and Indigenous from their lands. So I'd like to open with just a song to bring us all together in that open heart and open mind. So the song that's coming was taught to me by my brother Daniel Schnakapo from Edmonton area, and it is the Rainbow Song. And what it does is it offers all of us that centeredness of all of our chakras and all of that being, and remind us our whole self that in that darkness just before that really dark period of a storm, just before you see that rainbow, it helps us give us that inner strength and that inner peace of that good mind and that good way to see that beauty and that light that we all carry within ourselves and within each other. Yeah. Yeah. So it reminded me of that time when I sit with, when I get to go to camp and be a part of the African, Caribbean, and Black community, and how we sit and we talk and we listen to each other and we tell those stories of that, finding that peaceful way within our families and that unconditional love that is that root base of our teachings and our families, and how wonderful it is to be able to gather and share those moments together, to be able to sing songs from Indigenous from Turtle Island to Indigenous from where they're from, and how blessed it is to be able to be taught those songs. The next one that's coming to me is there was this song, and it's I've learned it from a friend who learned it from a Fia walking tree, and it's that water goddess, and how every single one of us is connected to that water, and that we are drinking the same water that 3 generations behind us drank, and that we're drinking the same water that 3 generations ahead of us will drink. And right now we're in that 4th generation, so we're in those 7 generations of water, and how blessed it is that each of us has the ability to have that water, but how hard it is for those living on reserve to struggle and not be able to get clean water, and how important that is to our people and then to each other in every part of this world. So I'd like to share that song and bring that water that we're all connected to. It reminds me of how when I go into the jails and I've gone into the jails and worked with the women, and they aren't able to access their medicines, or they aren't able to access much of anything, that we can pray with that water. And as they let that water run through their hands or over their bodies, wherever it is, and they pray with that water, it takes them to that good place, and it takes it all back to the ocean where it's all cleaned and brought forward in a good way. So this will be that last song that I share. Yeah, yeah, Maya. Yeah, Maya. Yeah, Maya. Oh, yeah, Maya. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, Maya. Oh, yeah, Maya. Yeah, Maya. Oh, yeah, Maya. So I wish everybody a happy Dyke March Day. Did Gone Digital and have a wonderful time. Bamapi till we see each other again.
Thank you so much, Teo. We appreciate you joining us and sharing your wisdom today. And now to introduce myself. I'm your host for the afternoon. My name is Karina. I am a Franco-Ontarian Dyke, although I've lived in Quebec City for a big chunk of my life, so you might catch me mispronouncing a few words tonight. Anywho, this is my first year as a member of the Ottawa Dyke March Organizing Committee. So without further ado, we have a whole afternoon planned of so many virtual activities. This afternoon, you will be hearing some speeches and watching live performances of Dykes based here in Ottawa. There will be other activities such as our virtual market where you can browse some awesome artists, makers, and authors and head over to their shops and support some wonderful local Dykes. After the live stream is done, head over to our website, ottawadykemarch.com, and look for the digital market page to shop. We also have some beautiful coloring pages that can be found on our website as well. And they're really nice. So also after the Dyke March, stay tuned because our Stay Homo and Dance after party in collaboration with Homophono will begin at 8 p.m. on Zoom. So throughout this event, feel free to react, comment, and share the live stream. It'll help us a lot. Just a reminder, the Dyke March is a trans-inclusive and trans-positive event. Therefore, any transphobic language, in addition to any other oppressive or derogatory language, will not be tolerated and will be removed by our moderators. Juste un rappel que la marche Dyke est trans-inclusif et transpositif. Donc, tout langage transphobe ainsi que tout autre langage oppressif ou péjoratif ne sera pas toléré et sera supprimé par nos modérateurs. Now let the Dyketivities begin. Our first speaker is Alyssa Gonzalez. Alyssa is a public speaker, blogger, fiction writer, and biology PhD. Her fiction uses science fiction and fantasy elements to explore social isolation, autism, gender, trauma, and the relationships between all of these things. She writes at the Perfumed Void on the subjects of biology, history, sociology, and her experiences as a Hispanic, autistic, atheist, transgender woman immigrant to Canada who mostly stays connected to her heritage through cooking. She lives in Ottawa in Canada with a menagerie of pets. So without further ado, please welcome Alyssa.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to be here, but it is also hard to be here. It is easy to look at a map and see coastlines, rivers, mountains, valleys, forests, deserts, and cities. Entire worlds are built on that. Geography defining history and setting culture in motion. We are who we are in part because we are where we are and where we have been. But I invite us to look at our maps and see something else. I invite us to look at them and see a gradient of danger warping around those deltas and oases. Some places are safe, others are not, and there is a landscape of horror and relief draped across the one of earth and sky. I myself have had the tremendous fortune of traversing that landscape. This July, I celebrated my 3rd year as a permanent resident of Canada, and this August, I celebrate my 12th year living here in Ottawa. In that time, I have established myself as an independent adult, lived, loved, transitioned, and done dozens of other things that the long shadow of my former home did not allow. With any luck, I will carry Canadian citizenship before too long. Before any of that, I lived in the United States. That statement used to make a rather anodyne impression, but it did not feel that way to me. Even then, I knew that I was standing in a local nadir, and there was a much higher peak on the safety landscape for me to reach. These days, people rightly recognize that I did not so much migrate as escape. I want that for others. I was lucky. Canada's jealous enforcement of its border had enough gaps for me to attain that safety. My passage was easier than many others because of where I came from and what I look like and who facilitated my journey and the title I now carry. For too many others like me, people in far lower hells than the one I escaped, the ascent is far less simple. The standard of proof that aspiring refugees must attain to access this country's safety is abominable and serves mainly to repel the most needful of us. Various policies recruit those whose safety needs are already met out of grotesque capitalist notions of utility and reject those who do not seem likely cogs for Canada's machine. I was lucky that my recognition of myself as autistic is my mere unprofessional judgment and not a doctor's writ, or else I too might have been cast aside. For this country to even pretend to meet its own professions of multicultural inclusion and its own image as a haven for people like us around the world, persecuted for who we love and who we are, Canada must do better. I want for others better than what I received. There is no excuse for a country as boundlessly wealthy as Canada to spend the pittance it does on LGBTQ2S, etc. refugee services. There is even less excuse for the far larger sum spent on the border that keeps us out, and the clerks whose job is almost entirely to look for reasons to deny our entry. Imagine having to penetrate that kind of bureaucracy while living on borrowed time. Imagine making that attempt while working through interpreters with no way to judge whether one is being relayed accurately. Imagine trying to get one's message across a cultural divide to arbiters who have no incentive to truly understand one's situation on pain of death. We have an immigration system so pointlessly hostile and expensive that nonprofits and volunteer groups form to make it navigable to those it is ostensibly designed to serve. They call us perverts, but I think there is little more perverse than that. I have seen others like me fleeing far greater dangers than I have ever faced blossom after they arrived, finally becoming themselves when at long last they could know safety. I shudder to imagine the dozens of others who could not penetrate the bureaucratic maze that this country deemed unworthy, lights extinguished far too soon. It should not be up to Rainbow Road volunteers to ease these journeys. The grand apparatus of civilization is worth nothing if its resources are not deployed to lift those of us who need lifting, and few need it more than those of us fleeing this kind of oppression. And it should not be okay with us how much migrants have to endure even after they arrive. My path was easier than most, but I had to plan around the end of my schooling and my relationships because the very idea that I could want to stay seemed alien to this country's laws. Getting my bank account took special effort because many kinds are not available to people with temporary status. I spent a year avoiding any contact with the medical system because provincial health plans do not apply to people with temporary status. This obscenity affected my transition timeline. The day of my permanent residency was a relief as much because it finally meant I could attend to my health in earnest as because it meant that I could, at long last, know that the life I built here would not have to be dismantled on short notice. It is similarly beyond offensive how little it takes for people with temporary status to be sent back to the hells they left behind. The fact that Canada is willing to deport people for any reason at all, let alone for petty crimes, is a black mark on its record from which it will never truly recover. The fact that having built a life here and having nothing to go back to in one's place of origin is not enough to make deportation unthinkable is sickening, harrowing, enraging. Even now, there are professions I cannot undertake or else my permanent residency, expensive and slow and difficult as it was to acquire, would be called into question. I will soon swear an oath this country does not expect its born citizens to uphold for the privilege of having this country's seal on a passport. It is only recently that people on spousal sponsorships stopped being required on pain of losing their residency to cohabitate with their spouses for at least 1 year after gaining it, even if those spouses turned out to be abusive. These are norms we should question. These are institutions that should change. This expectation that immigrants, whatever path they take to become Canadians, must exceed in merit and effort those lucky enough to have been born on this side of those arbitrary map lines is not something that passes any ethical test. If this gruesome project of a place is ever to redeem itself, one of the steps it must take is to level these obstacles and open its doors. If there is one thing the landscape of safety does not need, it is walls. And if there is one thing I need, it is to know that people will look back on the difficulty of my own accession into Canada, let alone the stories I have heard about the refugee pathway itself, as aberrations from a less compassionate time, before this country truly understood what it means to be human.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. So our next speaker is Roxana Hajrizi. Roxana is just a regular person trying to make the invisible visible. So welcome, Roxana.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to everyone who created this panel to bring awareness and to create a safe space so that we could talk about things that are kept in the dark, and situations like these need more attention. I'd like to talk about the 1.5 million undocumented people here in Canada. So starting off, for the longest time, and even now in modern times, refugees, LGBT plus Q people flee from war, danger, trauma to seek protection, acceptance, and freedom. Now, I say this wholeheartedly, that when you come to Canada, and you apply to become a protected person, when you apply for permanent residence, when you are trying to obtain Canadian citizenship, you have to be very lucky to obtain this piece of paper that identifies you as a human being. I say that because situations that I will be raising is that there is and there has been and there will continue to be lawyer negligence. Many of us have been and continue to be affected by lawyer negligence, and it results in cases being dismissed. And ultimately, people who come to this country and have lawyer negligence on their files become failed refugees. The after effects is that everyone else gets to go back to their families, where they do not face family separation, where they do not have fear in their hearts, because ultimately the file that has your name on it, you face those consequences. The after effects of that results in deportation, family separation, and where people escape those dangers and traumas and wanting a better life, come here, they face lawyer negligence on their files, and then they have that reoccurring effect of having to deal with racism, persecution, discrimination, because they are failed refugees, because their cases are dismissed. So they face deportation, family separation, and dangers like racism, persecution, and trauma. We go through torture. It is physically and mentally harming us. It is trauma that I wish upon nobody, because I've been affected by this. I've been in this country for 23 years with no legal status. One thing I would like to bring to everyone's attention is that earlier in August, there was a motion that was passed in the House of Commons. A MP by the name of Samir Zubrani spoke about officializing the Roma genocide that happened 75 years ago during World War II. There are many Canadian leaders who have made statements about Roma people and the dangers they continue to face globally, but especially in Europe. Long story short, what has happened to the Black and Indigenous communities for centuries has happened to Roma people. There are many people out there who are not aware of Roma people and the traumas and dangers that has happened to them for centuries, and it continues to happen. Something is very wrong here. When I say this, I don't want to be revengeful. I do not want to be hateful. I want to bring positive awareness so that families like mine don't continue to have fear in their hearts, to have families separated in 3 different countries because my family is that diverse. I want to talk about communities. For example, during this global pandemic, Canada has been doing an amazing job. People of all ages have united and has helped by making masks, donating food, so on and so forth. But one thing I want to say is that we need to be there for vulnerable people, for undocumented people, people living with no legal status, because we are afraid to speak out. We live in the shadows and our human rights continue to be violated. So when this global pandemic hit, when this crisis hit Canada and the world, we've immediately taken action. But what about those people who suffer in silence? What about the people who are afraid to speak out because they fear deportation, because they fear family separation, because they fear racism, discrimination, persecution, and beyond? What happens to those people? What I want to say is that we can and should contribute to making Canada and the world a better place by taking your own action and speaking up for the voiceless and talking about situations like these that are kept in the dark. I mean, we've seen cases here in Canada, people facing deportation, and, you know, different cities all across, different cities and different provinces all across Canada, people taking action. But there is no concrete safe spaces. There is no concrete advocacy for people like me, for people like my sister, for people like my mom. I am happy and proud to be standing on Canadian soil. As I've mentioned, our great Canadian leaders have released statements saying what has happened to Roma people continues. The dangers they have recognized, the torture they have recognized, what has happened for centuries, and what is happening in modern time globally and especially in Europe. My mother is still living in the unknown, and so are the 1.5 undocumented people. I'm here to say that it is wrong for people to face family separation and deportation because of legal errors that have been made on people's files. It is not right. People flee for a reason. They come to this land, and Canada is a place that is a multicultural country. This world has been created with full of color, with different religions, with different identities, and that's something that we all should embrace. But in sad reality, it doesn't happen even in modern times. Even through advocacy and marching on the streets and chanting, refugees are welcome here, protect our undocumented people, protect our migrant workers. It happens, and that should change. I am one person, and I stand behind everything that I've been saying, and I stand behind everything that I'm saying here in this panel. And I urge everyone to take their own action and do the right thing. Have compassion, have understanding. And if you don't know about undocumented people here living in Canada, please educate yourselves. We are living in the shadows. Many of us cannot work. Many of us cannot get medical. Our human rights continue to be violated on a daily basis. We are all human beings, and we should all show compassion. We should all be united. And I hope that when a situation kept that is in the dark, I hope that politicians and our great Canadian leaders will hear my voice, and hopefully they will hear yours, and so that positive change can come. When I come forth and I speak my truth, I come in peace, love, and respect, and I always will. I do not want to demand, yell, and scream for a situation that is important as this. This is a situation that everyone should take action upon. And if you're hearing this, I kindly urge you to have compassion and understanding, and for everyone to be a human being and to be the voice for the voiceless. Because ultimately, for example, this global pandemic, here specifically in Canada, people who are privileged to have legal status and those who are not fortunate to have legal status, there is no division here. We've united as one during this pandemic, and we've helped one another. We are doctors, we are lawyers, we are cashiers, we are amongst you, we are human beings, and we all deserve to live in a safe country where we are accepted, where we are welcome, where we are protected, And it is wrong for people like me to face deportation to a place that we ultimately escape from. It is wrong and it is cruel and it is inhuman. And positive change needs to happen. And as I mentioned before, I hope that my voice will travel and it will be heard. I'll give you an example of what I had to do out of desperation. Last year, December, in the cold winter months, I had to camp out in front of the Prime Minister's office because my sister, myself, my mother was facing deportation. But luckily, it is the support of my community, it is the support that I have globally that ultimately resulted in my sister and I now waiting for a permanent residence. My mother is still in the unknown, and the other 1.5 undocumented people are living in the unknown. People should not face torture because of legal errors on their files. It is wrong, cruel, and inhuman. And as I said before, when I say this, is because I want to fix what was wrong to make it right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roxana. Next, there was a community member who wanted to remain anonymous, but who had remarks on this topic from lived experience, and we would like to share her remarks by way of an audio recording. For the community member's privacy, the recording is not voiced by her.
To feel entitled to what your ideal life. I am a Black African Muslim lesbian. I was born and raised in part of Africa where being a lesbian is punishable by law, culture, tradition, values, morals, religion, and by those who feel entitled to what your ideal lifestyle should look like. Since immigrating to Canada, I have found a lot of spaces where I'm able to be my authentic self. I definitely feel safe in these spaces because everyone in the LGBTQ+ communities that I have personally been involved in have been very encouraging, warm, and non-judgmental. I'm not saying it's perfect out here, but at least I'm no longer in constant fear of being shamed or killed for being a lesbian. This in turn has improved my mental health. I am grateful for being here and for being a part of the LGBTQ+ community, and I do hope for a better chance for intersectionality and diversity to grow within the community. Happy Pride, Ottawa 2020. Signed, Black African Muslim Lesbian.
All right, so for our final speakers, Lisa Hébert, and a recent newcomer to Canada, join us on behalf of Capital Rainbow Refuge. Capital Rainbow Refuge is a group of more than 24 primarily LGBTQ members of the Ottawa community. Founded in 2010, they are composed of a diverse group of professionals, lawyers, law students, and community members who were inspired by a Globe and Mail commentary written by U-Ottawa law professor Nicole Laviolette that called on LGBTQ communities in Canada to sponsor sexual and gender minority refugees. They hope to encourage LGBTQ communities across the country to take up the challenge and embrace Canada's private sponsorship program in support of LGBTQ refugees. So welcome to our speakers from Capital Rainbow Refuge.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm okay to show my video if you want, but I'll be sharing my time with somebody we help sponsor that I'm so grateful came to our country. So I'll speak for a bit, she'll speak for a bit, and then I'll just close up. So I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, that this is Algonquin and Anishinaabe land, and it's while we were involved in helping bring people here who are facing intolerable persecution where their lives are risked, this is not our land, and it's unacceptable that their rights have yet to be recognized in a just settlement. So Capital Rainbow Refuge is a non-profit group, and we sponsor sexual and gender minority refugees. We've attained so much in our country, but it's hard to believe that worldwide there are still more than 70 countries around the world that recognize relationships between LGBT people, and they're, you know, more than a dozen with the death penalty, and 6 actively use. But, you know, we talk about criminalization, but the fact is that oftentimes when a community finds out about somebody being queer, then they will and that's why people have to flee. They either have to flee or they don't survive. Let me tell you a nice story. So there's a young lesbian and her partner that we sponsored a year and a half. Can you hear me? I hope people can hear me. A year and a half ago, and they had to flee in a hurry because of death threats. But in her country, she had a child, and in her country, the only way to get ID is if you can register that birth. And to register, you have to be married and have heterosexual parents, and the husband has to register the birth. And that's how you get a birth certificate. And from a birth certificate, you get a passport. So the child had no ID. And we worked so hard on this case. We made legal representation to the Canadian government, but they didn't want to set any precedents by giving him a passport. So we actually found a lawyer in that country who ended up winning a precedent-setting countrywide human rights case that the organization that gives out ID would should give out ID to people who don't have 2 parents. And the agency would not implement the ruling, so we had to they went to court again. And I just want to say I'm so proud that 1 month ago, her son arrived here in Canada and we were able to reunite them. And I just want you to know I have not seen so many happy video pictures. I've seen that boy swimming and learning English and singing the alphabet. And so I do want to say that sometimes dreams do come true. So our group has helped sponsor about 100 newcomers to call Ottawa home, sponsorship. And what we do is form groups, and that group takes on the job of fundraising enough income support for 1 year. And they also undertake settlement, helping get a family doctor, housing, education, work, career plan, and do like social and emotional support. And we run workshops on how to do this. We have about 16 groups who are involved in doing this. And we also have a volunteer section that helps people who are not sponsored. One of the programs we worked on to try and help people get out of Africa was inspired when in 2014, Kenya brought in this kill the gay law. And we found that nobody could get out of Africa. It's just so hard to get out of Africa, and it was impossible to sponsor there. So, and there are a lot of people in Kenya who couldn't get out. It's really intolerable what's happening there. There's a camp where there's terrible violence. It's so bad against LGBT people. They have like a compound that's walled off for the queer people. And the other refugees come in and beat them regularly. And the officials do nothing about it because they think if they intervene, then the other refugees will think the officials are queer, and then it will be unsafe for them. And we found that the UNHCR is transferring officially all processing over to the Kenyan government, and the Kenyan government thinks that queer people are abominable, and so they're not actually processing them. But through that program, it's a cost share program with the federal government. We have brought a couple dozen people to Ottawa. It's taken way too long to get them out of Kenya though, because the processing is so horrible out of Kenya. But there is somebody who came here more than a year ago, and she's wonderful. I'm so proud of her. We're going to call her Quintus today. So she's gone to adult high school, has really bettered herself. And now that our year of funding support has ended, she's actually got 3 jobs, and she's got a career plan. And I'm so proud to let her share a bit of her story with you today.
Thank you very much. I'm called Quintus, and I lived as a refugee in Nairobi for almost 5 years. Life was so hard and still hard for those people who are still living there. With the process in as being a refugee in Nairobi, you're given a document to go maybe like after 1 year, but if that 1 year collapses, for you to go and do an interview, they tell you no, you have to come back maybe after another year. So the process is so hard for the LGBTQ people who are living in Nairobi and also living in camps. And right now, during the pandemic, some of the LGBTQ people are being evicted from the houses because they are not working. And there is no organization which is helping those people to pay the rent, to buy food, and or to get any of that stuff. There was an organization which was called Hayas. It was giving out money. The amount was $40. But we used that money to pay the housing, to do medical, to get food, all that kind of stuff, and the money was not really enough. And the problem is, if you go to UNHCR to strike, all the people who have gone to UNHCR without an appointment, that UNHCR organization calls the police and they take all the people to the police. After that, they transfer them to the camps, of which living in the camp, it's really, really hard. And because when you go to the camp, most of the people, like, you're given maybe 1 kilo of beans and 1 kilo of maize, and that it has to take you for a month, which is not enough for them. So if you complain and for what's going on with the people, if you have some people living in maybe Canada or US, so we try to help them, of which it's not easy to help people, because even us, you have to parent, you have to do all that kind of stuff, but of which it will be great if some organizations come out and help the LGBTQ people living in Nairobi, because life there is really hard for them. And also some people end up doing things which they are not meant to do. Like some people end up like being sex workers. Some people end up like doing suicide, because I think, is it last year? I think this year at UNHCR, there is this guy who did suicide, like he strangled himself on a big tree outside UNHCR. It was a terrible situation, but it's because UNHCR puts those people into the situation of which, if you're living in a place without food, without clothing, without renting, like landlords come, they tell you have to get out, you end up doing something not good. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you so much to all the speakers who took the time today to share their touching stories with us. It was very moving and eye-opening, so thank you very much. We're a little bit ahead of time, so we are going to take a quick 8-minute break, and we'll be back to you at 4 p.m. with some performances, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. I just wanted to take a moment to give a quick welcome to the people who just joined the stream in the middle. So welcome. Thank you for tuning in. So without further ado, we are going to move to the performer part of the march. So our first performer is Harar Hall. Harar is a queer Jamaican-Canadian multidisciplinary artist and poet currently living, organizing, and creating on unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. They use their work to explore themes of identity, recognizing that these themes inform their experiences with love, lust, belonging, happiness, empowerment, and person storytelling. For them, poetry is first and foremost an avenue for healing. Please welcome Harar.
Hello, thank you for having me. I don't know, sorry, I'm just gonna, can everyone see me? I'm not, but
You look great, Harar.
Okay, amazing. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be performing at this year's Dyke March online. I think it's so incredible that we can still create like spaces for each other during the middle of like a pandemic. I think that we need it so much, and I think community is so important. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. I have a lot of poems to get through today, so I'm going to dive in, but I'm going to give a couple of content warnings beforehand, just because I think it's really important. So this poem that I am, this first poem is, I often call it Pride. I change the names of my poems a lot, but right now its working title is Pride, but it's also oftentimes untitled. And it's about a first date that I had that was really incredible, but also I think really hard, because I think it was just like really difficult to be out in the open being queer, and to see how being queer but also being Black and also being femme presenting, and how all of those dynamics really presented in the way that other people interacted with my queerness and interacted with my joy and my happiness. And yeah, so it was hard, and it took a lot of processing. So there is some, for a content warning, there's some discussions of street harassment in this poem. It has been 50 years, minus 1 day, since the Stonewall riots, and I am sitting too close to her on the train. I am kissing her in the middle of a crowded park. I am holding her hand in the rain. We are eating ice cream on the steps of a church. And in every single place they stare. It is the first time we have held hands. It is probably the most innocent thing we have ever done. Our hands crisscross, knitted in loose stitches of uncertainty, and she is leading us in the wrong direction. Little droplets of rain are falling into my hair, and I can't bring myself to care. I am so focused on the feel of her hand in mine. So I am caught off guard when he stumbles over a mouthful of broken glass. Of lust, he wants us to be thankful that he managed to people who were not paying attention to him, so sexy that he had to say it aloud. My heartbeat quickens for all of the wrong reasons, and this is the first time she responds. But I have lost count of how many men's eyes have followed us today, of how many unsolicited compliments we have received, and it's not harassment if each one of them only does it once, but it has been everyone all day, and I am so tired. Around the second time, she laughs and says something about just trying to exist. And I wonder if this is still the price of existence. I wonder if I was sitting too close to her on the train. If everyone could read something in my gaze that I was trying to hide, was it really so profane I want to scream or cry or shrivel up into nothingness? This isn't even a date. And maybe I wanted it to be. When she rests her head on my leg and falls asleep, sunlight sweeping across her cheekbones, or when I tasted the sweetness of soursop juice and mango ice cream on her tongue. And sitting here on these steps, we are so much further right now from sinning than we want to be. But the women who burst through ornate doors flowing down these same steps have a lot to say about sinning. Something in their gaze reminds me of home. It is a call out they feel comfortable shouting because I look like the people that call them grandma or nana or auntie. It is the disappointment. How could you betray us after all that we've done for you? It is shame in a gaze. It is hushed insults and side eyes from the people, the side eyes that I've seen the people I love hurl at people like me. I think that it must be some kind of irony, that they in their celebration of love have more to say about desserts than a wedding ceremony at night, as if they enjoy shrouding affection in darkness. And like the shame of an aunt, something makes me want to be more defiant than this little thing will allow. I do not kiss her in front of them. More scared of the shame I feel than the violence in their gaze. And when we sat on the grass, I only wish we knew how to rest easy, but there is a tension in being outnumbered. And we do not know when their desire will turn violent. This is no easy balance, wondering when predatory eyes will become predatory fists. So I am holding her hand and I am scared. Scared of what this man will do, of how his intoxication and lust will mix with his entitlement that has never been a combination that makes men rest easy. I do not let go as we walk away. Instead, I clasp tighter. I do not know if I have permission to make resistance of this small gesture, but what else do I call my willingness to fight in the streets for the permission to hold her hand? It is 50 years and 3 months since the Stonewall riots, and I am holding her hand and kissing her cheeks under the hum of fluorescent lights. A child sneaks glances at us from across the store. We smile back at them. She whispers that the child is most definitely gay. I wonder if we gave her permission for her own casual resistance. I am still scared sometimes, but I hope one day she won't have to be. So yeah, that was my first poem. I wrote it a year ago, and I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot, specifically as I've been like reflecting and I would say inundated with news of police brutality and also just violence against, I think, Black women and Black trans women, Black femmes, and really grappling with the lack of safety that exists for us in the world, but also grappling with how important our joy is and how important it is to hold space for each other and love each other. Because yeah, I think that's really, really important. I am going to perform a new poem now. I wrote it very recently, and I'm just going up to it. But this is a poem I wrote for, I think, one of the most influential women in my life. I think not only does she like inspire me a lot, but I think she inspires a lot of my poetry. It is my grandmother. And I think that the reason that she inspires me so much is because she reminds me of home and she reminds me of my childhood and my culture. But I have, I think, a very difficult relationship, as I'm sure many people do, with their families. But also I think I have a relationship that is quite difficult with my connections to being able to like be fully queer, but also like my deep love for my family and my deep love for my culture, and being in tune with that culture. And so my grandmother was in Jamaica for a while, and it was really, really scary because she's obviously older and like travel restrictions are quite tricky. But she recently came back, and I really wanted to pick up the phone and call her, but there was like something holding me back and I didn't really know what it was. And so I wrote this poem, and it is untitled. I'm not good at picking up the phone and calling my grandmother. Letting days, weeks, months pass before I hear her voice again. I think it sounds better in my memories. Sounds better with the innocence of my childhood. In my memory, she does not ask me to speak to my father. In my memory, she does not blame me for running away, ask me if it was worth it. Is this life worth it? Tell me to apologize for being first daughter, asking me to apologize for being first daughter, or just ask me to apologize for being loud, disrespectful, and apologetically first daughter. She does not tell me that I am better in her memories too, that she misses reminding me of the importance of memorizing phone numbers, misses me dressing up in her 90s, smelling the perfume on her dresser, running curious fingers over old photos, staying over for Saturday morning service. I hold on to this version of her, letting its love dance across my mind's tongue when it is missing home, when it thinks of home, or laughter, or Christmas. I used to take too long to call because I would dread the moments when she would tell me that it's been too long. Now my stomach twists in anticipation of the moments of silence, the space between words where she will identify me as a stranger. How far can unconditional love extend to a stranger? And I wonder if she can forgive me for the conditionality of my love. I wonder if she holds a place for me in her memories too. Does she think of me when she is missing home? Or did she forget me around the time I forgot her number? That's the poem. I do think it is interesting doing online shows, because generally there's like no real feedback. So I'm like, I hope people liked it. But it's a bit of a bittersweet poem, but I think that the context around it being written is important, because after I wrote it, I did call my grandma. We had a really great conversation. And yeah, I love her very much. And I think that it is important to, I don't know, I guess hold space for all of the parts of myself and all of the people that I love. And I think that's a process that I'm constantly learning to work towards. This next poem is also one that I wrote recently, but I think I started it a while ago. And yeah, I think it talks about a journey. So 5 times men have made me cry in no particular order. 1, my father, or rather, my father via my mother. At a young age, I learned how excellent men could be at indirect harm. When my mother told me my father blamed her for my gender on the day I was born, I am too young to receive this information or to hold its complexity, but it sits heavy on my chest. I tried to excavate the hurt in between ragged sobs behind the closed closet door of my room. When, at the age of 4, my brother called me fat because he knew even then there was no better way to win than to make your opponent feel like they took up too much space. He and I are still unlearning competition, and I still have to remind myself that I deserve every space I am in. I like to believe that when Johnny in the 7th grade started dating Madison, I shed tears at the thought of a lifetime of never being chosen. My brother's laughter echoing unlovable, my father's voice shouting unwanted when the man I had trusted to be my first love showed me that there is no such thing as a safe choice. I cried because I had vowed at that point that a man would never make me feel stupid, never make me question my own judgment. And that night, at the age of 18, sitting on a carpet soaked in bong water, surrounded by well-meaning boys or well-meaning men, and I felt the future crumble around me. At the voice of a man claiming victory, I held the tears in until I had reached the safety of my own bed, knowing even then I had so much more to mourn than them. And you, I had hoped that you would not make me cry, wanting you to defy all I know of man, but you are still human. And I am left wondering, what is it about power that makes me feel after all this time that my tears are still weakness, that I do not have the right to cry when man sees me, when man treats me less than human? What is it about power that shames us for sadness, that tells us to harden, become better, a withstanding treatment, mistreatment for the next time? What is it about Black femininity that calls upon men to degrade and demean? Do you enjoy seeing me crack under the pressures of this world? Or do you enjoy watching me hold in sniffles, turn head towards sky, run away so you cannot see your own destruction? I will no longer grant you this kindness. When men make me cry, they will be faced with my anger. They will watch as I shatter, and they will watch as I turn my rage into creation, into community, into a future they are incapable of breaking. Thank you. Okay, I have two little short ones to finish off with, and then I think my time will be all up. But I couldn't decide between the two of them. I think they're both equally important. So these are two like short poems. One of them I wrote a while ago, and one of them I wrote more recently. This poem is called On Love Poems and Platonic Life Partners, and it's also in a zine called Queering Friendships that was recently released. I think that the details of it are on my Instagram page, but it's a really great compilation of like a lot of amazing queer writers and artists. Their laugh is like wind chimes tingling on the porch of an old forgotten house. It is joy weaving itself between the trees. It is proof of life, or proof of beauty, or proof of the divine, and the way my stomach fills with butterflies at its mere memory is proof of love. Sometimes when I am holding them against me, I imagine having only this. And I am devastated by the limitations of our language, of our imagination, that my mind would describe the tender softness of their skin, rubbing circles into my hands, into my hips as an only. As if I were to only have this, then I would be better off than I have been every day before. I would only have more evidence of kindness, only be more safe, only more sure of who I am. And if this sounds like a love poem, then it's because it is. I am in love with you, in love with us like I have never known before. Let us hold each other in our numbness, in our sadness, in our hopeful. Let us grow into boundless versions of ourselves, weaving our limbs and our hearts outwards and upwards. I am so much better knowing you, so much better loving you. Yeah, I wrote that poem for a person that's really important to me and really special to me. I think that within like queer communities, chosen families are so critical to our survival and to our happiness. And I think that the amazing thing about, I would say, like being queer and sort of rejecting heteronormativity is recognizing all of the ways that love can exist outside of romantic relationships, and the ways that we don't really need to bind the strength of our love with the romantic relationships. Yeah, and so I think that poem is something that is always really important to me. And I'm gonna move on to my last poem now, and it's one I wrote recently. I think it's also a nice way to finish up my set because I think that like I mentioned earlier in my bio, I'm Canadian. I was born here. My family is Jamaican. And so I think that there is a lot of elements of migration, like within my family, and just like diaspora and like what that means to me and to my identity. And I think it's been really empowering for me being able to share that with other people that I love. So this poem is called Love Poems for Displanted Queer Islanders. I wonder if I find little bits of home on her lips. If loving each other feels like diving into the Caribbean Sea, like meeting halfway, like resistance and freedom in uncertain waters. The taste of fried plantain on our tongues, even if it sounds different to our ears, hips whining to the sounds of dancehall baby. Go faster, and she whispers in compas slowly. Stay still, always holding each other. I dream about us basking in sunlight and feathers, about bringing her home to meet my grandmother. I dream about sucking the juice of freshly picked mangoes from her lips. What will she taste like on white sandy beaches? What will she sound like when her cries are joined by a hummingbird symphony? I dream of loving her in all of our languages, again and again, loudly. Thank you so much, and happy Dyke March. I hope you all have an excellent day and enjoy the rest of the performances. Bye.
Thank you so much, Harar. That was beautiful. So our second performer is Kelsey McGrewer. She will be performing the song Outside by Fliss, the queer cowgirl crooner. Fliss couldn't be here live today as she is on the road, but she sent along a little note for us. She writes, I wrote the song Outside in March when Canada and most of the world was under quarantine during the COVID-19 pandemic. Writing it was a therapeutic process for me in a really scary and uncertain time. I wanted to soothe and uplift myself as much as I wanted to bring comfort to other listeners during a time where we were isolated and afraid. I'm going to be releasing my first single and music video, Comfrey and Calendula, in the next month, which I'm so excited to share with everyone. You can follow me on Instagram at FlissFlissFlissFliss, so that's FLISS 4 times, or Facebook at Fliss, to stay in the loop about that and future releases I have in the works. So that was a note by Fliss. And now to introduce the performer layering her talents onto Fliss's music, Kelsey McGrewer is an Ottawa-based multimedia artist whose practice often involves elements of self-portraiture, video art, sculpture, and performance. She focuses on themes of embodiment and responds to the canon of visual representation throughout art history by challenging its often dogmatic nature. When Kelsey began to learn pole dance, she quickly grew attached to the art and is now introducing it as an extension of her practice. Kelsey would like to thank Fliss for their beautiful song titled Outside that she will be dancing to. It has been a pleasure responding to this piece of music and connecting with it through dance. So please welcome Kelsey.
Hi, everybody. Just give me a moment here.
Rest your head upon my virtual shoulder. Calm the voices in your mind. One day when all this is over, we'll be stronger, we'll be closer, and I can see the light. Outside, sing their song. Even after the darkest night, even after the darkest night, everything will be alright. Up to the flowers finally and see the light outside. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Happy Dyke Day.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. That was amazing. You made it look so easy. Next, we have a short video from one of our makers that will be featured in our digital market. So here is PP Ranch making graphic clothing and handmade jewelry accessories with vintage materials. All right, so our third performer is Andy Vicente. Andy is a queer Filipinx visual artist whose interdisciplinary practice explores intersectional diasporic identities, precarious livelihoods, and the juxtaposition of movements. Through installation and digital design, they aim to broaden an understanding of marginalized experiences and encourage collective empowerment. Please welcome Andy.
Really like what you done to me. Really explain it. I'm so into you.
Hi, my name is Andy. Today I've set up an installation in my kitchen, paying tribute to Dyke icons Audre Lorde and Gloria Ian Saldua, may they rest in power, as well as Barbara Smith. These women, writers, activists that have made and continue to make contributions in dismantling white supremacy and heterosexism. Along with their peers, they started something called the Kitchen Table Women of Color Press, run by and for women of color, creating a publishing space for feminist lesbian women of color that wasn't white dominated. They've inspired a lot of my work on maintaining radical thought and diaspora consciousness. This very table has sparked so many important conversations and initiated ideas that challenge the ways in which we live in liberation and perform social justice. We've also had some pretty good meals here too. I hope this installation reminds you to continue having conversations that not only bring you to the table, but take you to the streets. in solidarity, and empower. Andy.
Thank you so much, Andy. Our fourth performer is Saffron St. James. Saffron is a multi-instrumentalist, singer, and composer. Saffron strives to fuse an eclectic blend of musical influences from blues to folk to soul, blending them with a poet's eye for text and an irreverent approach to reworking covers, delivering a whimsical sonic energy and performance style with influences from the many disciplines in which she works. When not producing, singing, dancing, or dispensing bird facts, Saffron can be found curating zines, doing crafts, and making stop motion shorts. So please welcome Saffron.
Hi, everyone. I've been having some interesting times with my tech, so please bear with me as I make sure everything's working. There we are. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much to Ottawa Dyke March for having me today. I'm so thrilled to be sharing a stage with such wonderful artists and activists and just all-around humans. I'll get right into my first song. So this one is a bit of a blend between a traditional spiritual and a song that has since become a jazz standard, but definitely blatantly ripped off / stole that traditional spiritual. And the estate of those composers has since been very litigious about the song that they stole, which is frankly rude. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting on that lately. And you know what? Let's just play it. Let's just play it. Let's just say it. Let's hear it. Okay. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home. A long way from home. Sometimes I feel Summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, and your mom's good looking. So hush, my darling, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. Spread your little wings, and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can harm you. With Daddy and Mommy standing by. Sometimes I feel the living is easy, but it's strong. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, and your mom's good looking. So hush, my darling, don't Thank you. Aggressive echo. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can adjust my settings to see if I can
It's
help
okay,
with
Saffron.
the
I
echo
think I fixed it.
situation. Oh, okay. Super. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so my next tune is an original, and it is off of my very much on hiatus EP. The EP is called Circumambulate, which means to take a walk around. And I'm gonna turn the reverb off. There we go. Now I sound like a person, a regular person. And the concept of the EP was to create recordings and to create work using public space. So the EP was to be recorded and has in parts been recorded in libraries across the country, across this land. And the thing about public spaces is that since, COVID-19, there has been less access to them. So the project is on hiatus, and so I am very grateful for the opportunity to share this, which is going to be on that project when that project is a thing again. There we go. Okay. You know what? I'm going to take my headphones off of that. Okay. distant early morning. Run for cover, my dear friend. Oh, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what this could but I know that it's big and it's here and it's now and it's coming for you and is on the wind. Can't look back, we must keep pressing onward. March beneath a blackened sky. Oh. I can feel it moving ever closer. No one's left but you and I. Oh. I don't know how we got here. I don't know what this will be. But I know that it's big and it's here and it's soon and it's coming for you and me. Is on the wind. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what this will be. But I know that it's big and it's here and it's now and it's coming for you and me. Okay, all right, thank you. Oh, I had my reverb off the whole time. That's fine. That's fine. Now you know what my voice sounds like. when I'm not pretending I'm in a much larger room than I actually am in. Because this room is actually very small. Oh, thank you, Samantha. I appreciate that. Okay, I've got one more tune for you. Closing off this set with like something slightly more hopeful. This tune is called Tomorrow Is My Turn. And it's another one I've been thinking a lot about lately. It, for me, really serves, really represents and really embodies that feeling of uncertainty that I feel like so many of us are sharing right now. And it also holds a certain optimism, like that kind of occasionally wavering but unyielding optimism. And that's all I got. So let's do it. All right. This tune is called Tomorrow Is My Turn. Those who may reach for the stars. Oops. There we go. Those who may reach for the stars. Others will end behind bars. What the future has in store, no one ever knows before. The time may help you forget all that has happened before. It's too late to regret. What's gone will be no more. Tomorrow is my turn. No more doubts, no more fears. Tomorrow is my turn when my luck is returning. All these years I've been learning to save fingers from burning. Tomorrow is my turn. No more doubts, no more fears. Tomorrow is my turn to receive without giving, to make life worth living. Now it's my life I'm living, and my only concern for tomorrow is my turn. When summer is gone, there's another to come. You can stop the years drifting by. Oops. When summer is gone, when summer is gone, gone. There's another to come. You can't stop the years drifting by, even though you try. The time may help you forget all that has happened before. It's too late now to regret. What's gone will be no more. Tomorrow is my turn. No more doubts, no more fears. Tomorrow is my turn when my luck is returning. All these years I've been learning to save fingers from burning. Tomorrow is my turn. No more doubts, no more fears. Tomorrow is my turn to receive without giving, to make life worth living. For it's my life I'm living, and my only concern for tomorrow is my turn. Thank you. Well, that's the end of my set. I'd like to, again, extend my most sincere thank you to the folks at the Ottawa Dyke March for having me perform. It's been so lovely getting to share this little slice of the day with all of you. Happy Dyke Day and happy Pride.
Thank you so much, Saffron. So next up, we have another short video of Munea World, who is a queer, non-binary person of color artist who sells prints, patches, paintings, drawings, stickers. Please welcome Munea World's video.
Hi, my name is Munea. I use she and they pronouns. I am non-binary queer person of color, and I am an artist with this year's Dyke March 2020, Ottawa. And I'm here to talk about my art and some of my products that I have. So I create a lot of different types of art with a lot of different materials. Like I do digital art, I do paintings, I do drawings, I use watercolor, acrylics, so all kinds of mediums. And I'm just going to show you some of my products that I have that are from my stickers. So this is one of my stickers just to give you a preview of what you can find on my Etsy, which is etsy.com/shop/Munea And you can find me on Instagram as well, instagram.com/artbymunea, which is MUNEA. So that's me, and thank you for listening to me.
All right, so our last performer of the afternoon is Paige Maskell. Paige is a student at the University of Ottawa, as well as an editor and published poet. Their first book was published in 2017 and touched on mental illness and the trials of adolescence. They continue to publish their work on both Twitter and Instagram and use poetry as a tool for self-discovery and expression, specifically touching on topics including mental health, self-love, sexuality, and gender identity. Welcome, Paige.
Hi, so I'm Samantha Page, and I'm a poet, and I'm also a dyke. Even saying it now, I feel a sense of discomfort with words like dyke and lesbian because the world has taught us that we're dirty and wrong. And as a white lesbian, born and raised in Canada, I've really benefited from a lot of privilege, and I just really quickly want to acknowledge the turmoils that queer, Black, and Indigenous people of color have had to endure, and just say I stand with them in solidarity as we continue to fight for equal rights and equity for all marginalized groups. The poem I'm gonna be reading to you today, I just have one. It's about my personal experience as a dyke. I spent the first 19 years of my life believing that I was in some way obligated to like men, and that I would be fine and my attraction to women would just go away if I found the right man, if I got over my discomfort, and if I let myself be straight. So today I'm bringing you a poem called Things I Want You to Tell Me. I don't usually title my poems, but this one was a really big deal for me to write. And I tend to leave them titleless so they are more vague and can be interpreted however the reader wants. But this one speaks so so honestly about my truth, and I believe a truth that a lot of other dykes and queer people in general experience. So I wanted it to be more catered, more recognizable, memorable. I wanted it to be very clear in its message. So without further ado, here is things I want you to tell me. Tell me why I can't hold her hand without reproachful eyes holding on to our backs. Tell me why the heart I carried 20 years in the making can't do one goddamn thing to uphold the standard of fortifying the family name, growing ranks like an army, instead desperately unfulfilled by the thought of anything less than rosy cheeks and soft promises of morning. Tell me why I fold my skin to give others the comfort of what they have known, instead of reveling in the gaiety that is pumped through my veins when I observe secret glances laced with desire, too scared to make waves in the public's rocky sea. Tell me why you hold signs of empty promise and then build on the foundation of hate, set by a patriarchy that denies our very existence as they slip their own down our throats, another consentless act against a body tired of fighting. Tell me why I'm forced, by the expectations I carry on my chest, to rely on the presence of man to give my gentle life meaning, when my heart only yearns for her hand holding mine, as society screams I was meant to create, using a body gifted by gods that deny my existence. Tell me why the world refuses to taste who I am on its silver tongue, instead whispering my name into the palms of their hands, shielding their mouths from the virus of loving whoever brings true ecstasy, instead forged in truth, not bathed in forced discomfort. Why do the raging fires of hate outside my body follow me into the depths of my emptiest dreams, my subconscious confirming that I am born of sin and that she was not what the world intended for me to settle down and call my home? Why I'm drowned by the feeling that my thoughts might be wrong, but my truth is a facade, and one day I'll wake up craving him instead of her, that maybe the world just fucked up the wires of pleasure and revulsion, creating an anomaly of attraction against a world of perfection, a master of the art of heteronormative performance. Tell me why at 13, his sweaty palm made me nauseous, as my friends pinned a badge of achievement to my chest with their toothy grins, why I sat against the wet brick outside the gymnasium and cried until the rain enveloped my shoulders, the only comfort I found for my pain, why I sat on my own against the vinyl slide tying knots in my hair, as I watched her life shine through the whites of her eyes, and the world whispered that my difference was laced with bitter contempt even before I had my first kiss. Tell me why my body filled with bile when he touched me in the back of his car, the windows smoky and streaked while the world's whispers idled in my head, like streetlights in the fog, saying this is what the world wanted of me, and that this was all I was worth. Why does hot wax whisper shame down my back in the form of apologies, filled with heavy breaths and weak helium? Why does my tongue swell with guilt when it dances with hers? Why are gentle touches less welcome in the eyes of the world? And calloused hands held like trophies, paraded like victory when our fight continues against centuries of disgrace. Tell me why my skin turns to cavernous fire when I call myself what I am, when honest answers find their way into tense open air and dance with disgust on the faces of my peers, why I can't say our name without biting my cheek and bracing for impact. Tell me why every day I hold a sword to myself in a battle of who I am and who they want me to be. Two parties of pacifists forced to fight by a system that refuses both of their existence, that tells us to melt into the mold of a woman who holds the patriarchy with her little finger, with no opportunity to taste the world she once thought she could own. Tell me why grandma doesn't call me back, because no child of God's and no grandchild of hers will live with the love of a dyke's touch. Why my fingers curl into themselves when I'm told in the same breath that I'm resentfully loved and a cherished disgrace as she washes the dishes with my tears unflinchingly. Why can't I kiss her without mother's shielding young eyes from our happiness? Why can't my joy radiate proudly? Why must my mirth be hidden? Why are we shoved to the ground? Why are we told to be quiet? Why does the world give us one moment to scream our pain before tucking us back into padded drawers with no windows? Why are we left to suffocate? So that's what I have for you today. I'd just like to extend a thank you again to the Ottawa Dyke March, to all of the talented performers and speakers. And I want to say Happy Pride. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paige. So Lisa Hebai, who spoke earlier on behalf of Capital Rainbow Refuge, added a few things because unfortunately her internet cut out and she couldn't finish her speech. So I will read them to you. If anyone is interested in volunteering with Capital Rainbow, don't hesitate to get in touch with capitalrainbowrefuge@outlook.com. They are also very pleased to give out tax receipts for anyone wishing to give a charitable donation. Also, they just received a grant from the government due to COVID-19 issues. They're supporting LGBTQ newcomers by delivering food boxes, vouchers for food and cleaning products, tutoring, tablets, and more. So if you know any LGBTQ newcomers who are struggling right now, please contact Capital Rainbow Refuge, put them in contact with them. All right, so that's about it. So we've reached the conclusion of the Dykes Gone Digital. Thank you to all the speakers and performers for their amazing speeches and art. I think that the Dykes in Ottawa are so talented, and it was an honor to host the event. And, you know, I think that despite the COVID-19 circumstances, that this turned out really, really well. And the committee, the Dyke March organizing committee, they worked so hard to make this what it was. So congratulations to them. I'd like also to remind you to stick around for the Stay Homo and Dance after party, which will begin at 8 p.m. I would also like to mention that if you enjoyed this event, you can support us by sending a donation via e-transfer to ottawadikemarch@gmail.com. Speaking of which, we would also like to thank Quart for their generous donation and support. So to everyone, happy Pride Month, happy Pride Week, and happy Dyke March.